Hello guys, welcome to another episode of Clues, Cues and Reviews, and this video is late. It's kind of like a common theme if you watch a lot of my older videos. I'm always late. Something's going on, and one of the reasons why is because this is a hobby, this is a side thing that I do because I like to talk and kind of discuss things I enjoy. So a lot of the time this kind of gets put to the side where life takes over. Unfortunately, not being well, my little one's not being well, and my voice is okay now, but like emptied out the phlegm and it's disgusting. I won't go into it, but anyway, this is Black Cover 125. I'm hoping, health supporting me wise, I can move on and do my One Piece catch up, and then hopefully My Hero Academia very soon, and set up a 7 Deadly Sins so I can start get the ball rolling on a regular basis. Without further ado, chapter 125. It was beautiful. Let's get into it with 5 segments. So to lead into the first point, let's go back a little bit. So we know Kirsch got taken care of, and Zolas and Magna really had the main kind of moments this time around. This left with the chapter ending with Kirsch being revived and attacking, as well as Magna's swing. So let's kind of talk about how this kind of all comes about. So if we break it down into 2 points, let's start with Zora's situation. He's basically set up this like spell of some kind. We don't know exactly what happened at the last chapter, but we find out in this chapter. So we'll start off with Magna. So Magna, pretty much without going into the specifics, defeats himself. His attack gets reflected. He kind of underestimates it, thinking that, wait a minute, he can only reflect it, and it disappears much like his own attack. So he is pretty much defeated by his own move, and he's like, oh, it was really good. How did he copy all of that? But you can't underestimate people, and that was ultimately his outdoing. He kind of got basically outsmarted. The Magna swing isn't the smartest of characters, but he got outdone very nicely. Point number 1, Magna swing gets defeated by himself. He defeats himself. He kind of just falls into the trap. So, point number 2, Kirsch versus Asta. Now, while they were both attacking at the beginning of the chapter, basically Zora, or fake vice captain, basically essentially state, he goes, look, go after him, I'll take this guy, and then he does. Now, this part of the chapter I really liked for a different reason than the obvious outcome, was the fact that essentially Kirsch went all out. Now you're probably thinking, why is that a good thing? Ultimately, if you look at how he's been fighting before, more than likely prior to this tournament, he's been fighting this all the time. He's been very flamboyant, and he's been having a certain type of style, and he's been doing things in a very specific way, kind of a eccentric personality. He's never been pushed to the brink where he's had to go all out and he's got to just throw down his way of being, and he literally has to go all in, and he's backed into a corner and he really has to do that, and he flies and he goes, you know what, forget about looking good, I'm going all out. Problem with him flying up is Zora, using his brain, has anticipated this and basically blocks one of his arms, and then he gets defeated by Asta, and he's like, okay, he kind of defeated himself as well. So he kind of let go a little bit. There's a bit of an analysis at the end that covers this, and I'll let the character Zolas Analysis kind of talk through this, but he basically lost composure and defeated himself again. So you can see that although he had kind of Asta had to hold back Magna for that 5 minutes, this spell or these incantations are really OP. But I like how the actual author, and this is for both Magna as well as for Kirsch as well as Zora, I like how he's giving you a kind of an OP power, but automatically he's also giving you a weakness, time. This also kind of gives you a space for improvement. So at the moment it takes him 5 minutes. In like a year's time, will Zora be able to do in 4? You get the picture. So eventually they'll get to a point where you can just do it like that. But anyway, Kirsch is defeated by Asta with a little bit of help by Zora, fake vice captain. Let's move on. So while all this craziness is going on, Zola, basically the female character that's also in Charlotte Rose, the Lee's crew, wants to take advantage of the situation. So in all this madness and chaos, she's got an opening and she goes for it. She's ready to attack, but she can't. And then we get a little bit of flashback. It's a little bit confusing if you don't really pay attention to it properly. You're reading through it quite quickly. But basically, this was part of Mimosa's plan all along. Essentially, it's a spell that kind of burrows its way into the person's magic and takes over. So I like this as an explanation because, again, it goes back to the idea of time. So it takes time to power up, it takes time to get kind of set a seed, take over the host and take over for a short period of time. Using that to its advantage, we're able to identify that that's where the crystal is. You're protecting it in the golem that Sol created in the previous chapter, and basically because she can't move, they take care of it, meaning Asta's team wins. So I really like the idea. I really like the explanation, because bearing in mind, you understand from where she was before Mimosa to where she is now, we wanted to see growth. So we saw a good defense, good attack. Now we've got this spell. So although she had like some minus points with the previous chapter where she looked like she was kind of overwhelmed by Sol. It kind of seems like she allowed herself to be doing that so she could implant this magic to piggyback on the Sol's golem magic, so we can get to this outcome. So I like that justification. So it gives her another element to her magic, but at the same time not detracting so much away from her, like we saw in last chapter. So I'm glad we've got that explanation. Anyway, let's move on. So point number 4, Zolas analysis. So there's a lot of times a lot of reviewers will analyze a battle, a weakness, and a lot of the information that we get or we give is based on assumption on what we think they mean. So some things can get lost in translation. Another beautiful thing in this chapter is Zolas analysis is kind of a way for the author to tell his points, to say, look, okay, these things have happened, but these are the real reasons why I like that, because it's his world. And he wants to add these layers to these characters, layers to the way of battle, strategy, tactics, and this is done. So anyway, get into the analysis. So what Zola basically does, he mocks his opponents, as is his character, this rebel, anti-hero type of character, but he gives them feedback, which I think is key, because bearing in mind, they're looking to be taking over the bad guys. These are people that are up and coming with talent. They're not the end product like these captains who are still developing as well. Perfect example, Yami, with his new techniques. Anyway, back to the point. So Sol basically is very rough around the edges. She needs more refinement and be more attuned to the subtleties of her magic, and she'll become a lot better. So that I like that, because it basically tells us that she has all the raw talent and the power, but with a little bit of more polishing up, that diamond will shine. I like how that's been put. So he hasn't completely downplayed her. Now Magna is a different story. There's a constant meme with villains, and there's a constant joke about villains, and even characters in shonen mangas where they spend more time talking about their techniques than they do fighting. And it's like, yeah, I've got this magical technique. A perfect example is a character from Bleach. I believe his name is Shinji. He was a Vizard, and he's fighting against one of the main characters, bad guys, Aizen, and he explains his technique, and then Aizen just uses that against him. So that's like a kind of a reference to something like that, where he basically said, look, Magna, you spend more time talking than you do actually attacking. You should do more of that. We don't need the breakdown in your technique. I like that, because that shows that Magna is quite naive. And I'm hoping this leads to him getting development in that area to become a more well-rounded fighter and a bit more smart on the battlefield. And then we move on to Kirsch. Now, Kirsch is an overwhelmingly strong character anyway. He's essentially the 3rd rank from the top. So you've got the overall Magic Emperor. You've got the greater, the kind of captain level, in my opinion, Magic, and then you've got the higher kind of upper level, which a lot of these people are. Kirsch was ranked number 1 at that. So he's kind of like a B+ character, and he basically didn't put him down for his magic. He put him down for his mental game. So it's a combination of being mentally strong, physically strong, and be defined in your magic. And I like that he's kind of talked upon that. But at the same time, this character got development. He was pushed to the brink. He let go of all this, oh, I'm going to be magical and beautiful, and he went for it. And this is what Mimosa, his sister, also says, the fact that he went all out. He looks even more beautiful, that because he's like a warrior now. And then at the same time, we have a little more development where he even acknowledges that sometimes commoners can be beautiful in their magic. It's like, essentially what he's saying is like carbon, when it gets crushed and pressure, turns into diamonds, that kind of thing. Anyway, beautiful analysis. I don't need to go further into this. It's 3 minutes long as it is. I'll see you in the next point. The final point, and this is where the hype builds up. So this is kind of like, this is the quarterfinal. and this is really pushing for that Yuno versus Asta final down the line. But in between, there's also a battle of brothers. Now, we've had a brother and sister thing with Noella, but this is a little bit more personal, in my opinion, because although Noella got bullied by the younger brother is middle class at best, so he isn't necessarily the upper echelon fighter. Now, in this situation, Finral's rank 1 in the lowest rank, I believe that's D rank, you can call it, and Langrel or Fangrel, whichever it is, the vice captain of the Golden Dawn, the younger brother, is rank 1 higher or upper magician rank. Now, I made a mistake because of the translation, so I looked at 3 different websites. I looked at Manga Reader, Manga Stream, and Gemini Box, or Gemini Box, depending on how you want to pronounce it. But basically, he's not a greater level magician, he's a high level magician. So to explain, there's lower, mid or intermediate, high, greater magic sorcerer. So with him being a vice captain, he's actually ranked like a B+ fighter, which leads me to believe that all captains are probably going to be the A class kind of fighter. But that's something I want to clarify, and I just want to say this is going to be interesting because there's a higher supposed power level difference between a rank difference. There's a personal level because the older brother didn't want to hurt people. The younger brother is basically a prick who doesn't really care. The older brother was kind of shunned from his family, whereas the younger brother basically became the heir apparent to the throne for that family, so to speak. And he doesn't let him forget that. He's on his case. He's kind of antagonistic, whereas the older brother doesn't care. So it's really going to be a clash of brothers, a clash of powers, a clash of ideals and philosophies, and it's really going to be interesting. It's going to be a brilliant chapter to look forward to, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe.